Welcome to my Sankofa table. On today's episode, we are paying a special tribute to our dear friend Willie Royal, who has recently transitioned. I had the pleasure of cooking my Sankofa veggie soup with Willie last fall in preparation of a road trip to the mountains with friends. Willie has worked camera on several of our in-studio episodes in the past, and I'm so thankful to have known and shared memorable experiences with such a beautiful person. Rest well, my friend. You will be missed. Welcome back to my Sankofa table. I am your host, Tia Capers, and on this program, we focus all things health and wellness. Today, we're in the kitchen, but not my kitchen, but we're in the kitchen of my dear friend, Willie Royal, and today, he and I will be cooking up and sharing with you guys my Sankofa soup. It's a signature soup that I cook. It's a veggie soup, of course, and I'll just kind of give you guys an idea of some of the ingredients. So we have kale, and I've already pre-prepped a lot of this stuff in the interest of time. So I have some kale cut up, chopped up, rinsed off, stems removed, the whole bit. I have some yellow squash, okay? And I have some butternut squash because we know we're in the autumn season, and butternut squash is good year-round, really. I have some onions and peppers already chopped up here. I have the red ones, the yellow ones, and the green ones. I have a little bit of grapeseed oil because we will start off by sauteing everything in the grapeseed oil. I have the diced tomatoes. I have that pre-packaged wild rice I'm always telling you guys about. That comes in handy. I have some organic black beans here, and I have some spices. Now I do have my signature Sankofa seasoning here that I just pretty much blend up my favorite spices in a jar, but I do have some extras in case we need to add on to that flavor. So if that's something that you're interested in, then stay tuned, stick around, and when we come back, Willie and I will be cooking it up, so stay tuned. So before we get started, I'm gonna bring Willie in. So Willie, come on over here and join me. And I know you've asked me to come in your kitchen, so thank you for sharing your kitchen with me to show you how I put together this soup. Now tell me, what do you remember about this soup?
I remember the flavors in the soup, and it was vegetarian, and the flavors really popped. It was like a fall kind of situation, I believe, and it fed my soul.
Oh, good.
And so I remember Sankofa soup as a staple.
Okay, I know it was actually the soup that we had when I first met you. So you came to town. You now live here in the Charlotte area, but you came to town visiting, and you came by, and we were contemplating going out to dinner. But I think we started talking so much, time slipped away, and we ended up, I'm like, well, hey, I got some leftover soup if you want to try it. And we ended up eating the soup. So the soup was something that I recall you really liking. So I'm glad to be able to share the recipe with you today exclusively and with you all. So
Here we are.
Here we are. Any questions? Anything else you want to say about the soup or about what got us here today?
I think the way you have it presented and laid out, you presented the ingredients, they're pre-cut, it looks doable.
Yes.
The soup had a really complex taste, texture, and so forth, and I thought,
Right.
I couldn't do this, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
The ingredients are cut and so forth, it looks wonderful.
Thank you. And what I like to always remind people about soup is very forgiving. So if somebody wants to substitute out any of these ingredients or leave out any of them, they can. But the base of the soup is really the butternut squash, the kale. Sometimes I use collard greens. I've used spinach before if I don't have kale. Sometimes I use zucchini squash instead of the yellow squash. But and I do the onions and peppers, any combination of them. If you don't have the red onion, use the white onion. So use pretty much what you have. But as long as you have the butternut squash, the greens, onions and peppers, you can throw in mushrooms. Some people can put in lentils, like black lentils instead of the black beans. You can do chickpeas. Possibilities are endless. So pretty much whatever you have, just bring it all together. Season it and voila.
Well, you anticipated my thought. I was going to say, if this is a basic, how would you embellish it? and you talked about adding beans, black beans.
Yeah.
Well, we have black beans, but
Yes.
different types of beans
Yeah.
and mushrooms and so forth. And so you covered it.
Yeah.
Tia. This-
And if you don't have wild rice, you can also use quinoa, or you can leave it out altogether, or you can put it on the side. So if somebody doesn't eat one or the other, you can leave it out and just serve the soup and then add the rice or the quinoa to it. You can add any type of rice really, but my preference is always wild rice because I don't eat the brown or the white rice or any of the other rices. And then also the base is the tomatoes. So if you don't have diced tomatoes, you can use fresh tomatoes. I like to use these in the carton versus the can. You may be able to find these at your local store, but this is an option versus the can. So we try to stay away from the can. There are also black beans in cartons and such, but today we have the canned ones. So whatever your preference is, that's what you use. I typically use grapeseed oil to saute everything in, but use what you have. So if you guys don't mind, Willie and I will take our ingredients to the back here, right behind us to the stove, and we'll get busy. So stick around. Thanks. Welcome back. Willie and I, as I've said, we're getting ready to cook up a good old pot or 2 good old pots of soup. So I'm gonna start off. We have the stove already turned on. I'm gonna put just maybe a tablespoon or 2 of the grapeseed oil in here because we're gonna start off with the butternut squash. So we'll just put that in there. We may have to add a little bit more, but we'll see. So I'm gonna turn up the heat. You can turn up your heat a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna turn up the heat a little bit to maybe about 6 or 7. Because we want these to cook, and we know butternut squash is not a quick thing to cook. So we'll go ahead and I'll add half in here. You add the rest of it on your side.
All right.
And
All of it?
yes, go ahead and add all of it in there. And we're gonna build from here. So once the butternut squash is about halfway done, we'll start adding our spices and seasonings, and then we'll build everything else up from there. And then after we put everything in, we'll just let it simmer. So this is what we have so far. Stir it around a little bit. But what we want it to do is get a nice roasting color to it, like a nice brownish color to it. So
Yeah, they feel really hard. So
they're very hard. It's going to take a while.
Okay.
Now, for those of you at home, if you don't want to use butternut squash, you can use sweet potatoes. I don't eat sweet potatoes typically, so sweet potatoes is another option.
Does it give it a different type of taste sensation, or?
Kind of, sort of, because the sweet potato might be a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
You know, just a tad bit.
Yeah.
But actually, I have used sweet potatoes before, maybe once or twice.
How'd you like it?
I liked it. It's just, one of those things I don't really eat because of the starch.
Oh.
But, I had a couple on the counter and I didn't want to have to throw them out. So I said, let me just throw them in the soup and be done with it. So that's what I did. So we'll just let that hang out a little bit.
And so the logic of what goes first is dictated by your cooking time. So this takes longer, so
This is
we're
going
throwing
to
this in
take
first.
about 10, 15 minutes to get it to where we want to start adding stuff in there. About 10 minutes maybe.
Okay.
8 to 10 minutes
I
to where we
noticed
start adding.
I notice our heat is moderately high.
Yes, because I want this to hurry up and cook.
Okay.
I'm a fast cooker, Willie.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time. But this we do want to get it soft and browned a little bit, because if I start adding the seasonings in now, they might start burning. And we don't want the seasonings to burn. We want this to be kind of like a good ways cooked before we start adding in the flavors to it.
So you can burn seasoning even in a liquid base.
Kind of, sort of. We don't want to compromise our flavor, so we want the roastiness of the seasoning, but we don't want it to taste anything resemblance of burning. So we'll add it later.
Okay.
And might I add, Willie and I are actually cooking this soup for a road trip tomorrow. So, Willie, you want to tell the folk what we're doing tomorrow with some friends?
We're going to tour the Blue Ridge Mountains in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes.
And seeing the leaves turn for fall.
Yes.
And we rented a minivan. I think there are like, what, 5
I think it's
of
5 of us. going?
I have been fantasizing about doing something like this for a long time.
Oh, nice. Well, now your dream comes true.
Dream comes true.
And we're going to have a good pot of soup to take with us on the trip. We will probably transfer these pots of soup to a slow cooker or something, yes, because one of our friends has one of those chargers or outlets, power cords that we can plug up in the car and plug up the soup and let it, be warming up or stay warm until we get ready for it.
A regular 120 AC receptacle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They make all kind of things now. And we also have some stainless steel soup cans, like right here. We have these that we can warm up. It's an option. We can warm up the soup before we go, and we can put it in the can and it'll stay warm pretty much all day or for several hours.
So that's like a thermos.
It's a thermos, okay. A thermos can.
A thermos can. Okay.
Yeah, so, a lot of times when I travel, I take this. A lot of times when I travel, I do make a soup because it just works. It's a good thing for lunch to have on the road, so you don't have to stop to fast food places. It's already ready. It's cooked. It's still heated up from, when you put it in here. So it's really a good alternative. And I usually year round, I don't even care if it's the summer, I usually take a can of soup on the road with me. Now, as you can see, it's starting to brown. At least in my pot. Is your pot browning? It's getting there.
It's getting there. The thermos of soup when you travel is just such a fun thing to do.
Yes. It's like having your lunchbox already ready. Takes you back to childhood days.
Absolutely.
And now I will say that this pot is a cast iron pot.
Yes.
I like cooking in it, but I'm gonna get a traditional cast iron without the enamel. That's on my list. I think somebody's gonna gift that to me. Wink, wink. Because long story short, I loaned this pot out. Now I've had this pot for a number of years. It's broken in. I got my money's worth. But
it's well seasoned.
It's well seasoned. But I loaned it to some folk. You know those folks, and you might have been with those folks. And I sent the pot of soup with it, and the pot came back with no top. Without a top.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay. We'll work it out. And as I've said, I've got my money's worth. It's time for a new one. I was just kind of hanging on to this one because it's really my soup pot. It's just, it works.
And we're going to give this one to charity.
We're going to donate that one. Yes. So if anybody out there wants a pot, go check your local thrift stores or wherever, and it'll be there.
Without soup, it
won't have the soup in it. Now, don't get excited. It will not have the soup. It'll be empty. It'll be clean, though. It'll be clean, and it'll be empty. All right, so I'm noticing mine's browning, but yours is cooking. Okay. I'm going to turn up your heat just a tad bit. Okay. It is cooking, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding in the flavor. And we can add it in yours, too, because all in all, I'm stirring your pot, but all in all, it's all going to simmer together, so it doesn't matter if the butternut squash or sweet potatoes, if you're using that, it's not fully cooked. Yeah. I just like to start it off before I add the seasoning so that the seasoning doesn't burn.
And what this demonstrates is that different cooking materials cook at different levels.
Yeah, they do. And this is really a better pot. It's just not my preference for soup.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to turn my heat down because of this pot. You can keep yours where it is. So I'm going to add some allspice to this.
Okay.
And this is going to give it not really a sweet flavor, but kind of a sweet flavor. I'm going to add a little allspice. I'm going to add some to yours.
Wow.
Okay. And turn my heat down just a little bit more. But that allspice is already starting to kind of blacken almost.
Yes, it is.
All right, and so I'm going to go ahead and add some peppers over here. You can add peppers to yours.
Peppers.
Yeah.
Green peppers.
Yeah, and you can add the rest of those onions.
Purple onions.
Yes. And you can go ahead and add the rest of those.
Yellow and
red peppers, of course. I'll eat with my eyes. So
okay.
I'm always, folk at home, you can use whatever peppers, onions, or whatever you want. I just like the color. Okay? So we'll turn your heat down just a tad bit.
But see, from a nutritional perspective, all of these different colors really represent different types of nutrients.
They do.
Lycopenes and that sort
Oh
of
yeah,
thing.
they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so before we add the yellow squash, I'm gonna go ahead and start with that Sankofa seasoning. So this is like, well, if I tell you, I have to kill you.
Oh.
But no, really, it's cumin, it's coriander, it's parsley, it's onion powder, it's a little sea salt. I think I put oregano, basil in here. So it all works.
Smells so good.
Yeah, it all works together. So it works very well. And I may have added a couple more things that I forgot about, but I'm going to add a little bit more in here because we want that flavor to be on point. We don't want to compromise it. And I may have added a little bit of the Ethiopian spice in there.
Okay.
And I toasted I toasted these seasonings before I added it to the jar. So I just put it in a skillet, toasted it a little bit to bring out more of the flavor.
Where did you get the Ethiopian seasoning from? A store?
I got it from a local spice shop. And you know, sometimes I make it myself, but a lot of times I just buy it from them. So, all right, so now that we have seasoning in there, we'll add some yellow squash. You add the yellow squash to yours.
Squash.
Yes. All right, so we have the yellow squash in here. And can you smell it? Everything's coming together. Now, I'm going to add just a tad bit more grapeseed oil, just a tad bit. I'll add it to yours too.
Grapeseed oil is a very light oil and with a high cook point.
Yes.
So it's not going to go rancid.
Right. Very true. So I would use grapeseed oil over olive oil for this.
Okay.
All right. So now that everything's coming together,
Yes.
here's where we're going to add our wet.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead and add your black beans in there.
Okay.
And at home, whatever beans you have, add them in there. We're going to add tomatoes, diced tomatoes. So you go ahead and add the rest of that. And what I forgot to do was get a bottle of water for cooking.
Oh.
So if you can grab us a bottle of water or grab us some water for cooking, that'll be great because once we add our kale in here, it's going to fill up the pot.
Okay.
And we want it to still be like soup and not, it's like a soup stew.
Tia, is this enough?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and pour some of yours in there and pour some in mine.
You can say when.
All right. And I just eyeball it.
Okay.
So that's probably good right there.
Okay.
And then you can add some to mine. And I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit so everything will start to come back together. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
All right. Because we got to allow room for this kale we get ready to add in here. Your fire's already up. Perfect.
So now it looks like soup.
It looks like soup. And I'm just going to add the kale. And after the kale, we'll add the wild rice and we'll taste it to see if we need to add, you know, any more seasonings. We may have to amp up the seasoning. You know, as we know with soup, you have to kind of taste along the way. Because if you start watering it down, you have to build it back up, build up the flavors. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add half of this kale. Now we know kale shrinks down, so it looks like a whole bunch, but it's gonna shrink down.
Okay.
All right, you add the rest there in yours.
Okay.
Yes.
Looks really crisp and fresh.
Yes.
Did you soak it in cold water? Why is it so fresh?
I washed it in cold water. But that's all. I didn't do anything special to it. Just washed it in cold water and took the stems out. Now, those stems will be used for my smoothie later. So we're not throwing the stems away. We're gonna blend those up in my smoothie later.
And Tia, I noticed that you have a kale kind of cut or torn in bite-sized pieces.
I bought it like that.
Oh, you?
I bought it already chopped up,
Okay.
and I just washed it off and removed the stems.
Okay.
Yes. All
Well,
right.
that's very convenient.
It is. I prefer it right from the garden, but when I don't have it from the garden or have enough from the garden, it's an option. You can find them in your local grocery stores. Some of it's organic, some of it's not, but this is organic.
Oh, it's shrinking.
Yes.
Yes.
It is. So another option would be to add like liquid smoke or some other flavor enhancer. If I didn't say that before, sometimes I add just a dab. One dab. You don't want too much, but it'll help you have a meat flavor. It's not something I make a habit of doing, but for this soup, I find that it really adds flavor.
That one dab I can smell.
Yeah, one dab. For those that are transitioning from, to a more of a vegan or vegetarian lifestyle, liquid smoke is the key, okay? So if you don't want to add the meat, there are options. There are a lot of flavor enhancers out there. Read the ingredients and make sure it's something that you're okay with.
How long I've wanted to see Sankofa soup being made. This is really a special edition.
Yes, because I don't typically share this soup with everybody. So I'm letting y'all in and I'm letting my brother Willie in on this soup today. So now, Willie, last thing to add before we taste it is the wild rice. So we'll add the wild rice, add the rest of yours. This is pre-cooked. It's one ingredient, wild rice, that's it. And like I said, people can add rice, regular brown rice or white rice, red rice, black rice. There's a lot of different rices out there, jasmine rice, whatever. But for me, I like to add the wild rice. And also, you can add quinoa, or you can do both. So it's your soup. You can work it how you want to, as I say. All right, so Willie and I are going to take a taste break, and we're going to make sure our seasoning and flavors are on point. So when we come back, we can just cover the soup, add whatever is needed, cover the soup, and let it simmer, and it'll be all done. So stay tuned. All right, so now we need a spoon to taste. Turn the fire down just a little bit.
Tasting spoon.
Tasting spoon. Very bland. Very, very bland.
Wow.
But it's okay. No,
It's pretty good to me.
Well, maybe your pot's different than mine.
Oh.
Mine's real bland. Mine has a long way to go, but it's okay because I'm gonna add a little bit more of the allspice. Okay. I'm gonna add some sea salt here.
Okay. Brighten it up a little.
And I usually eyeball it. Okay. Start off with a teaspoon or two and go from there. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this Ethiopian spice because I really want that flavor to come through. And now a friend of mine sent me this. This is some Baharat seasoning.
Oh my.
So I'm gonna add this in there because I really want a deep taste. And this has a mixture of a lot of different things. I don't have my glasses on right now, but it's a lot of different things mixed in this.
Baharat.
Yes, and this is another like an international type of spice, but it really does pump it up.
Is it used in African dishes?
Yes, yeah, African dishes, yep. Maybe even Indian dishes too. Alright, so. That smell good?
It smells wonderful.
Oh God, if y'all had smell of vision.
Smell of vision.
Telling you.
Oh, this is so fun.
Taste again. Thank you. So basically you taste it till you get it right. That's it. That's with anything. It's getting there. It's still not where I want it to be. Not my pot. I don't know about your pot.
Okay. I think they taste pretty similar.
My pot has a little ways to go. Now, someone once told me, a dear friend of mine, that if I measured it out, I would get it right every single time. But for me, I just cook with my eyes. So hey, this is what I have. So I'm gonna add a little bit more of the Sankofa seasoning since it has a good blend of some of everything. I'm gonna add that in there. And I don't know about your pot, or the pot's gonna be combined anyway. So we'll just add a little bit to yours just to make sure. So we'll just let that come together. So if you want to see what our finished product looks like, then stick around, stay tuned. And if you don't see it here, you'll see it out and about tomorrow when we take our day trip with our friends as we're having lunch, eating our soup. So thank you all for sticking in there, and we will see you shortly. Stay tuned. All right, so family, Willie and I continued to doctor up the soups, and they actually ended up turning out very well. It is. It's such a thing. But for this one, it is not that big of a deal because mine is soupy. So if it starts to break apart, yours is not as soupy.
Yes.
So I might have a little bit more water so we can combine. Hopefully combine it. Yeah, to balance out. Yeah, we're good. If you don't mind, I'll have another spoon. So keep in mind that soups are very forgiving. You just doctor them up, you add, take away, whatever you need to do until you get it just to your liking. Also keep in mind that the more water or liquid that you add that's unseasoned, the more spices and seasonings you'll have to beef back up, unless you're using a stock of some sort. All in all, don't be so hard on yourself. My dear friend Willie and I had a great time making this delicious pot of soup together.
Because I'm just so excited to just have this.
I probably need to taste yours.
Yes.
Or combine some. Combine them.
Just taste mine and you get a sense of where it is relative to yours.
Right. Once we combined everything in the crock pot, it all came together, the perfect marriage, and our friends absolutely loved it.
Easily impressed.
I think because we've been cooking this soup for like how many years?
Oh, you got it down.
6 years.
You got it down.
That it's a certain taste, it's a certain something we're going for. And do you have some onion powder?
I do. No, I have garlic powder.
Oh,
I have onion salt.
Okay, that's okay.
Then I need to get some.
Yeah, you should have an onion salt anyway. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for an upcoming episode where I will be sharing our day trip to the mountains with friends where we're having good food, fun, fellowship, and fall leaves. So we will see you at the table. I wonder if we should mix the soups to kind of see what we really have.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if it'll all fit in this pot or all fit in that pot.
This pot looks a little bigger,
Okay.
but I don't know if it'll contain all of that soup.
Okay. Well, we'll start mixing and see what we can come with.
Okay. Would you like a ladle? A ladle?
Yes. That might be easier. But is it in this drawer?
Should be one in here.
Oh, there it is. No.
Well, no.
Does it have
Let me
holes in
wash
it?
that.
No, that's
It
good.
does not.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. We're where?
Big Laurel Gap Overlook.
Okay. And we're doing what? Taking a pause for the cause.
For the changing of the leaves, the exuberant colors, God's palette.
All of that. Right now we're cooking up our palates with this Sankofa soup prepared by Willie and I last night. Are you praying to the bowl, Willie?
We're praying to
Listen, one time for the bowl.
the Lord.
The empty
One
bowl.
time
The
for
empty bowl.
the bowl.